Hi you guys, welcome back to another week. I said last week I was not gonna say that, but I have to welcome you back, so welcome. Anyways, the past few weeks obviously I've been doing tons of DIYs, showing you guys everything from my fire cider to what else have I done, the mug cakes, the lip balms, past week's episode, the fall wreaths. So anyways, leading up to my birthday, which is coming up, which is the best month out of the year, November babies, I wanted to start to share with you guys a bunch of stuff that I've been promising to share, and I promised I was going to open up about my health journey, and I just feel like doing this is going to encourage somebody. And obviously you guys know by now I had a baby last year, so we're actually a day apart. Our birthdays are literally back to back. And so I felt like celebrating our birthdays this month would be a good time for me to share my journey leading up to in a 2-part series and my journey afterwards, because I just know that there's like a lot of moms obviously that are out there. You know, childbirth is not a joke. It's a nice and happy time in our lives, a change, transition. There's a lot of stuff that happens with it, but then there's also stuff that we go through that nobody really tells us about till we get to the doctor's office. And these are some of the things that I hope to share, at least as far as my journey is concerned, and hopefully it'll help somebody out there. So anyways, if she's one this year, so probably about 2 years ago, I was actually obviously a lot more actively doing music and going out on the road. And I just noticed, like, every month I was having increased abdominal cramps. Like it was always something. And we went out, it was probably, I want to say, I don't know what month anymore, but it was probably June. It was during festival season, and we were out in Pennsylvania for Creation Fest, and I had traveled out there with the band and everybody, and we were out there singing. I just noticed, like, listen, I'm not just feeling really, really good. And it was happening to me every single month. And so when I got back, I remember going into my voice lessons that day, and my coach was talking to me, and she had literally given me like this whole, speech and, training me what she does normally with me with rehearsals, your stage presence, your body presence, all that stuff. And of course the vocals, because she's amazing at what she does. So it's not just vocals that she addresses everything. And it almost felt like talking to a brick wall, because she literally just got done talking to me, and I'm still doing the same thing because something else was going on with me. I didn't want to tell her. I mean, she's a lady, so I felt like, okay, I could tell her, but then at that time I had a bunch of guys in the room because my nephews come out with me to those sessions, and I'm like, I'm not about to start expressing myself and saying what's going on with me. So yeah, I'm just gonna check it, and I'm just gonna look either foolish or stubborn, one or the other. So anyways, long story short, I decided it's time for me to go see my doctors, and everybody that knows me knows that I hate it going out to the doctors. So when I got out that day, she ran a test for me, and when she came back, she looked at me and she was like, your uterus is enlarged. And I'm looking at her like, enlarged? And I'm like almost literally like in tears at the office, and she was like, well, I'm like, so what's the problem? And she goes, I don't know, it could be anything. It could be fibroids, it could be anything. We won't know, but you're gonna have to come back, and we're gonna run ultrasounds for you. And I remember the date was, I had to go back on September 19th. So I was like, oh boy, I'm gonna have to wait like a whole month just to go back and find out what's going on. So obviously I'm just sitting there, and I'm just like, okay. So I go home, and then when I got out of the doctor's office, obviously I'm in tears, I'm crying. I called my husband, and at the time he was traveling. He was working overseas more so than he was here, so he was gone. And I'm crying on the phone, and he says to me, for every time that you walk out of the doctor's office and they don't tell you that you're dying, like, it's fine, just be grateful and just wait and see what they say. So fast forward to a month later, I go in, I have all the ultrasounds done, they come back, and yeah, she says the wall is a bit too thick. it's thicker than we want to see, but you're kind of young. Luckily for me, thank God, I didn't have fibroids. There was nothing there, but it was just too thick. So they were like, okay, we're gonna place you on birth control pills, and those should thin you out, and then in about 3 months come back and do a follow-up and see if that thins out. If it doesn't, then we have to maybe do a biopsy and everything. But you're young, we don't think it's, you know, cancer or nothing like that, but you know, we just want to check and, you know, see what's going on, but hopefully this should thin it out and it should be good. So I was like, okay, fine. So I got the prescription, I went on my jolly way, and then a month later, in October, I'm on my way to the studio. Actually, matter of fact, I was heading out the door to go record the song we were doing at the time, Show Us the Way. And I'm heading out and I got a call, and normally I don't even pick up my phone if it's just a number. I don't know what number they called me from that day, but I answered the phone, and so she goes, oh, how's everything going? And I'm like, oh, actually it's been good, like, you know, this past month cycle, everything, yeah, I'm good. I feel like I'm on the mend. She's like, okay, what are your thoughts about having kids in the future or whatnot? And I'm like, I don't know, like, I'm okay with the two that I have, like, they're fine, like, you know, that's not a question I can answer right now. And so she goes, yeah, because, you know, we did some more tests and your results came back and you have something called adenomyosis, which is basically endometriosis, but it's just that this kind of happens on the inside versus like that would just, you know, those things that sit on the outside. So I was like, okay, what does that have to do with kids? And she says, oh, because your uterus is like really spongy, it's like a sponge. And I'm like, so what are you saying? It's like, if I was to have a baby, would that be like complicated? Would it be high risk? And she was like, no, it's not even that. It's the fact that you just may not even be able to anymore because it's gonna keep getting worse. And the reason why I'm calling you now is because after a while, the birth control pills that you're on are not going to work anymore. And so I knew where that was heading, you know, in the end of the day, basically saying I'm probably gonna have surgery and have a hysterectomy. So I was like, okay, this is a lot, and this just kind of killed my whole vibe, and now I have to go to work and sing and smile and like everything's okay. So I got in my car. I didn't cancel my session. I got in the car, and obviously my nephews were driving me like they normally do, and I'm sitting there and I was crying as usual. I cry quite a bit. So anyways, I was crying. I'm just thinking about it, and I was like, I'm sorry, like my husband's not here right now. I can't make a decision, and this is not something we can talk about on the phone, so I'll have to wait till he gets back. So I started looking at what my alternatives were, and I called them my brothers are super close to me, so I called them up, and they were like, you know, it's okay. It's like, it's nothing to cry about. It's nothing for you to feel bad about. You know, we have two beautiful nieces. We love them, and you know, there's people out there who can't even have one. So I was like, okay, yeah, that's good. And it was funny because at that time I actually just had a very big argument with one of them, and it's so funny how things happen in your life, and we just all band together, like none of that stuff even mattered. And so anyways, they're just talking me through it. They're like, don't worry, get a second opinion, but you know, you'll be fine. So I got off the phone and I started looking at doctors, and I actually even called one up for the procedure because I was just like, I want to get it done. I'm like, I'm over it. I don't want to do it. And I called one of my really, really good friends, and she said to me, she said, nobody's taking anything out. Every organ that you have in your body when you came in, when it's time, you will leave this world with everything. Nobody's taking anything out. What are you talking about? Stop talking that foolishness. And I was getting so mad even at her at the time. I'm like, do you hear what I'm telling you? Like, I just want to get this thing done and get it over with. Like, I don't want anybody to convince me otherwise, because in the end of the day, like, I'm the one that's living with this stuff. So I just kind of chilled, and then my options were now when to do it, because I have Thanksgiving, and my Thanksgiving a pretty big grand thing. So I didn't want to do it before, and then right after Thanksgiving comes Christmas. So if I did it then you know, my holidays was just like, I'm like, this is really just a messed up situation. So I'm like, okay, I'll rest. I'll take the the birth control, and I had 3 months given to me till December, so I'll take it till December and then, you know, think about it when I get there. And I still kept looking at doctors and all the stuff that I needed to. If that was the procedure that was going to be done, then that's it. So I think there's something about when you hear news, it's good to not impulsively react when your emotions are still all over the place and you make decisions just for the sake of making it, you know. So obviously after a month or so, a few weeks of just like resting it out and just, you know, letting my mind kind of sit and be calm, I started doing research, a lot of research into everything. I started doing research into what are the side effects of the hysterectomies, what are the, I mean, I'm young, I'm in my 30s, you know, like what is this going to do? Send me into like instant menopause, or like what is this going to do? Like how is this going to affect me? And so when I started doing my research, I was like, okay, the sad thing about this is that nobody really knows what adenomyosis is. So even when doing my research, what am I supposed to be eating? There's so much out there for endometriosis, but there's really, it's almost like finding a needle, like a little pin in like a haystack. It's almost impossible to find information. So anyways, I started looking and I'm like, there has to be a way, and I'm gonna find a way, because by this time now I'm like determined to find the alternative and making the other stuff my last resort. So I start looking and looking and looking, and I'm like, you know what, I think the whole wholesome, healthy lifestyle is going to have to come into play. So first thing was to start cutting out sugars. I love sodas a lot. I like went cold turkey. I stopped taking those, you know, stopped taking juices, started eating more salads, and first of all, just even trying to understand what the condition was. And one thing that I found out was that, you know, like I needed to start it was obviously estrogen based, you know, so I needed to start, whatever I was eating had to be anti-estrogenic. And I remember the first time I said, okay, I'm not going to take milk anymore. Yeah, so when I did my research, and I remember the first thing, I was like, okay, I have to cut dairy out of my diet. And so automatically, instantly, I'm like, okay, let me go get soy milk. And I remember hating soy milk. My mom used to love soy milk when we were growing up, and I hated it. And then I went and got it, but obviously that was also me not doing my research, because then I found out that the soy milk was actually not even good for me to start with. And so I did this whole thing, and I started documenting my journey with my food. I started doing castor oil wraps on my stomach because I read something about, you know, basically how that would help with like shrinking your uterus in the event that, you know, there was like other stuff going on, not necessarily for adenomyosis. So I basically just made myself a scapegoat for whatever it was I was trying to research. So I was very intentional with my food. I cut out a lot of stuff. I started eating healthy vegetables, fish. You know, I was a lot of plant-based, a lot of green juices, a lot of healthy juices, not too much sugar, no more sodas. I was taking other stuff. Obviously, I was taking my vitamins, and I tend to do more of like the natural vitamins, so I stick more to like raw vitamins that I get at like Whole Foods or one of those kinds of places. So I was just doing like a lot of healthy living, and as I was doing all this stuff, I was documenting it, almost like I started even working on a cookbook, because I'm like, wow, this could help somebody who is probably going through what I'm going through and does not have any resources anywhere. So fast forward to like December, and it's now time for my refill for the birth control. And so I called in, and the doctor says, no, we're not doing a refill. You have to come in. We have to see you. Like, if we don't see you, we're not giving the refill. And I was so upset. I'm like, oh my God, like, you know, this is too serious. I don't want to come and see you guys. I don't want anybody to tell me anything that's going to mess up my holidays or whatever. So I didn't go. And then right after New Year's, I went and I did my appointment, but I kept doing everything else that I was doing. I was eating healthy, and everybody around me at the house was probably like, this is probably one of your diet things or whatever, and she's gonna fall off, because nobody but my husband knew what was going on with me. So I was just like, okay, anyways, they're kids, I'm not gonna pay them any mind, you know. I just kept doing what I was doing, and I just kept doing it because this time around, it's like my life depended on it, so I had to do it. And I would lie down on the couch, put my headphones on, wrap my belly with like the castor oil wrap, and just lay there. And so when I went into the doctor's appointment, after New Year's, I had lost 10 pounds. And mind you, I had weight sitting on me that I had not been able to lose in God knows how long. I had lost 10 pounds, but then the thing was that my test came back and she said, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever it is that you're doing, keep doing it. You're doing good. We don't have to consider surgery, and at least for the next 2 years, we can keep you on the birth control pills. And I was like, wow. And so I opened up to her and I told her what I was doing and how I started kind of writing this cookbook, and it was like my little journal. And that's how I came about the whole LOL situation that I now called my YouTube series, was basically me living, overcoming, and letting go. And that was what it was. It was originally LOL, the cookbook. And so I was just writing and documenting, and I asked her, because I used to podcast at the time, and I'm like, will you come on my show? Because I think it would be nice for me to have a medical professional. I'm doing what I'm doing from just a regular person's perspective, but now I really want to see if what I'm doing is actually working, and see if there's other people that have this condition that would love to try my diet and see if it was going to work, because I did everything from scratch. And she said yes, and I would be willing to look at them from a medical perspective as well, and see if this is something that we can even get like a nutritionist. And it was all this stuff we had planned, and I had announced it on my podcast that we were going to have her come on the show in the next month and talk about it, and that I was going to reveal to them what my health situation was at the time. Well, that never happened, because then in February, sitting here like, it's time, it's about that time of the month, and I'm like, there's nothing happening, and I'm like, this is weird, because the last time I checked, I'm not supposed to be able to even have a baby, let alone, and I'm on birth control pills. I'm like, what is going on? So anyways, it's time looking at Aldo. I'm like, I'm not gonna tell him what's happening. I don't know, like, this is very weird. Like, I know I have this problem, but my body does not skip a bit. So anyways, I go to the store and I got a pregnancy test, and it said that I was pregnant, and I was like, oh, pregnant, okay. So I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna believe this test. And I don't do the lines, because those things mess me up. I buy digital. I like to read letters that say pregnant or not pregnant. So I bought about 6 tests, and all of them said I was pregnant. And so I told Aldo, and anybody that knows my husband, he's a very interesting person. And so he was like, well, congratulations to you. I'm like, to me? Like, what do you mean? Like, Anyway, so we set up an appointment, and we go to the doctors. And so they said I had to go do my ultrasound and all that stuff. And she checked, and she was like, there's a heartbeat there. Yeah, there's a baby in your belly for sure. And she was like, and it's just one. There's definitely somebody chilling out there. And she showed me, and I got super emotional. I'm like, wow. And she's like, well, now you can, get yourself together and go into the office, and the doctor is going to see you. And so when I got there, she's like, oh, congratulations and all that stuff. And then as she's looking through my charts, she goes, oh, we just saw you not that long ago. And then she looks down at the chart. She looks back up at me. She looks down, and she's looking confused. She's like, I don't understand what's happening. And she said to me that day, and those words I've told everybody that I've shared this story with, she looked up and she looked at my charts, and she was like, honestly, medically right now, this does not make any sense, but God wanted you to have this baby, and God definitely wanted me to see this today. And as I got up and I was leaving, she was like, God bless you and your child. And I left there, and I was just like, wow, I didn't know what to expect. But you guys are gonna have to wait to part 2 to see what happens. But it was definitely one of the most rewarding times for me, because a few months before that, I literally almost gave up. When everybody around me was saying, get a second opinion, I was just, the tears and everything is just, no, I just want to go have the hysterectomy. I just want to get it over with. And to know that there was other options out there, and it was just even a lifestyle change. Honestly, for people who are out there that doubt that living a healthy lifestyle does really work, I'm not saying it replaces conventional medicine, but I was on birth control pills. Like, at the time I was doing it, I was not skipping my medication. And it's just, when God says something is for you, he will make something that doesn't make sense even to the normal I, because he's just that grand. When he does stuff, he has to do it in a way that nobody can say that it was man. It always has to go back to where it gives him the ultimate glory. And months later, I had a little princess NYOMI, and obviously it's going to be about our birthdays, and I'm definitely going to show you tell you guys more in part 2, the journey, the birth, and the after of what happens. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next week.